Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Matt Selba and I'll be your instructor for MAT162 and for some of you MAT062 as well. I just wanted to send out this video as our course orientation just to get you aware of what to expect this semester, where to find some things on our D2L page, and then what to expect your first week and for the rest of the course. So let's go and take a look. So we should be on our homepage MAT162-406. The first thing you'll see is a welcome announcement there, so you want to make sure you read through that. As a reminder, we meet on Tuesdays from 6 to 7:50, and then if you're in the support class MAT062, we meet from 8 to 8:50. At the end of this video, I'll explain a little bit more about the support class, so if that applies to you, just hang out till then. If you're not in MAT062, you can leave this video a little bit early, and I'll let you know when. We'll meet in East 411, which is the East Building at the Wilmington George campus. So make sure you don't go to the wrong campus. We're at the Wilmington campus. So before our first class, you would want to watch this video, which will help you guide you through looking over the course. And so we'll kind of go over the major important parts. So you're already watching the course orientation video now. And then I just want to mention a few things on this as well. So the first thing is your textbook. It's recommended that you find the textbook for this course. It's Introductory Statistics, Analyzing Data with Purpose, In-Class Activities, Student Pages. And it does say required on there. Now, this will actually be the workbook in which we write in, and it'll be during our in-class activities. It's basically where you're taking your notes. So it is recommended that you purchase it. There is a second book if you're in the support class, MAT062, and you do not need to purchase this. So if you already purchased it, it should have the title Co-Requisite Support in the title. You can go ahead and return that and get your money back. Okay. Now, I do want to mention, if you don't want to purchase the textbook, you can actually access the digital files and print them each week instead, or you can even type in to those digital files as well. If you're a person who is very organized and can keep all your notes in a very organized fashion to look back upon, or digitally, if you can organize them in an easy way and you like to do that, go for it. Personally, when I was a student, I always liked to write out my notes, and I would have been a student that just wanted to purchase the textbook. It shouldn't be too crazy expensive. So again, I usually recommend to students buying the textbook and writing your notes in, but you have a couple options there. I'll go over how to download the digital files here in a few minutes. Okay. For a lot of you, this is your first course at Deltec. So one thing I'd recommend before our day of our first class is to get your student ID card. There's information with this link here on how to do so make sure you follow that link. I'd also recommend downloading Microsoft 365 before our class starts on your computer, just so you know how to download the files and type into them easily. There's a video showing you how to download Microsoft 365, and basically what that will do is it'll allow you to have Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel on your computer. And that's free for Deltec students, so definitely take advantage of that. If you're an Apple or Mac user, some of the assignments will require you to change some of your settings. So if you're on a MacBook, you want to follow these directions. Going through Safari, make sure you go to your settings and then privacy and unselect prevent cross-site tracking. Here are your week 1 to 2 assignments. I'll talk more about these in class. You'll notice this class has a lot of mini assignments. So one thing I like to do as your instructor is to make it very easy for you to know what you have to do. And one thing I take a lot of time to do is hyperlink everything. So anything that we need in class, I'll hyperlink up here. Anything that you'll be working on your own time, I'll hyperlink down here as well. And I'll send that out in a weekly message. I'll even create a recommended schedule for you, and I'll send that out on the day of our class. So things are easy for you to find. There's another way to find all of these different assignments, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. Okay, so that's the welcome announcement. Here's some information about myself. I'll share that more during our first class. Email is the best way to contact me. I don't have like office hours as an adjunct instructor. So if you need to meet with me, just send me an email. I'm happy to meet before class, during our break time in class, or after class. I've also set aside Thursday evenings on Zoom from 5 to 7. So that's by appointment, and you would send me an email. Those meetings are meant to be like 20 minutes or less, and I can provide you with a Zoom link. The preferred method, like I said, is to email me, and you can typically expect a response within 1 to 2 days, typically within 24 hours. Okay, top right of the homepage, you'll have a calendar with all the assignments and their due dates. You'll also see that listed out here if you click the down arrow. Okay. Below that, here are the data analysis tools we'll use. I'll reference those in class. You do not need a separate calculator for this class. You can just use the Desmos calculator in your web browser. This weekly timeline schedule is really nice. It'll kind of give you a 100-foot view of the course. I'll look at that in a second with you. And then the links as well we'll reference in class. For the Del Tech, we actually offer free math tutoring, and that's both in person and virtually. So if you're having trouble on an assignment, definitely take advantage of that. I'll send a flyer out about that within the first couple weeks. So let me go back to this weekly timeline schedule, which is kind of your one-stop shop for finding all of the information for the course and like when it's going to occur. So let's say like you're going to have something going on in week 5, a family event, right? And you want to see what we're doing that week. You can actually look at the in-class activities we do, and you can click on these hyperlinks. All right, remember I said you could find the digital files? You could actually find the digital version of what we would be doing in class in your notebooks. You can find it here. You could hit download and download that as a Microsoft Word file and type into it, and you could type your notes that way, again, if you're a person who chooses to do that. So I provide all those hyperlinks for in-class activities, and you could look at the assignments that we'll have coming up for that week. Coming up for that week listed there. So again, just a one-stop shop to show you, what assignments are due and what we'll be covering. So you'll see on Tuesday night's class, we're kind of covering the Honors Pledge, in-class activities 1A to 1C. We'll also introduce our first project. And then the rest of the week, because this is a hybrid course, these are the instructional videos that you need to watch, and these are the digital files that go with them. Okay, and then these are the official assignments. You'll see a repeat of the instructional videos over here, right? So these are the same thing, but these are the assignments that are due. You'll see most of our due dates are the day of our class at 2, so we want to be doing the assignments before we meet for class. I decided to give you an extra day and a half from our Sunday night, like Sunday at 11:59. I wanted to give you some more time if you needed it with your work schedule. So I always make the due dates the day of our class, that afternoon. Okay. And then you'll see that some of the assignments like projects tend to be due on Thursdays. So we'll see that throughout the semester. Okay. So that's the weekly timeline schedule. Some other places you want to look, if you go into content, you can look at our course policies and expectations by clicking on Start Here, and then course information. Again, some information about myself, the syllabus, the video, which we're watching right now. Course policies and expectations, this is an important one. I already talked about how email is the best way to reach me. Definitely ask for help throughout the semester. Thursdays from 5 to 7 on Zoom if you need like one-on-one help. Course materials, we talked about the textbook calculator. There is no separate purchase for this Lumen homework platform. I'll go over that in class, so don't worry about that. Again, Office 365, I recommend downloading that before our first class. Late work. So generally you want to be turning your work in on time. However, we know life happens. So you can submit assignments late in some ways. They do have a 15% late penalty if it's a preview or practice assignment, and that's only up until a certain date. So like any assignment from lessons 1 through 6 can be submitted up until October 9th. So like the first month or so of class until they won't be accepted after that. Okay, but that would be for your late pass to use. Okay. The other assignments, like your projects, which we'll talk about in a second, those are generally required to be submitted on time. If you do have an instance where you need to submit it late, you need to communicate with me. And if it's a project assignment, generally that requires a conference with me so we can develop a plan for success. Okay, and typically, I'm pretty understanding with 1, maybe 2, depending on on the life situation that's requiring you to submit late. But after that, I have had in the past where I'm not able to honor students submitting things late if it's the 3rd, 4th, 5th time. So just make sure we're communicating with me and do your best to submit your assignments on time. Generally, for your feedback and grades, I always try to return that within 2 to 3 days. At the latest, though, it'll be once a week. So I'm usually pretty good about that, getting it even sooner than once a week. Attendance is really important. This is a hybrid course, so I only see you once a week. So what that means is you have a class with me Tuesday nights, and typically we would also meet Thursday nights, for example. We don't do that, right? So by missing one class, you're really missing 2, right? So it's really important that you attend class each week, because you could end up missing a lot of information if you don't attend. Okay. Overview of the assignments. So 60% of your grade will be projects. There are no exams for this class. So if you're a person who doesn't love tests, I think you'll enjoy this class. The other 5% will be preview assignments, 15% will be practice, and then 20% are what we call these weekly activities. So your preview assignments are meant to be completed before class, before our in-class activities, before the instructional videos. You'll watch the instructional videos or attend class and take notes, and then afterwards you'll complete practice assignments. All right, along the way, you'll be completing project checkpoints, which are these weekly activities, which all lead up to your final submission for the project. So it's kind of a flow of the course. I'll go over that again in a second down here. So again, projects, these are like your big test grade. Again, there's no test, so it's just like an open-ended project that I'll give you directions for. Your preview and practice assignments are related to the content that's covered in class, and then the activities are your project checkpoints that lead you to be able to submit your final draft of your projects. Okay, so some tips for success. Make sure you read through those, and then just a conclusion on the course policies and expectations. So I already talked about the evaluation measures, the 60% projects, 5 preview, 15 practice, 20% formative activities. And again, just to reinforce this idea that before you complete in-class activities, you're completing a preview assignment. During class, we'll have discussion-based learning opportunities for you to work with people around you, to engage in class discussion, to take notes, or it could be the video lecture, right? And then afterwards, you're going to practice based off of what was covered in the in-class activity. So that's kind of the flow. And then all of this leads up to your project assignments, okay? And that's kind of explained in more detail there. If you need help, there's free tutoring for Delta Tech students, for math students. So make sure you look through these resources if you're having trouble. It's a great way to get some help. Okay. The semester schedule, we already went over. That's that one-stop shop for all of the due dates. Key terms, if you're working on projects and you want to remember what a vocabulary term means, this is a good place to look. It's a Google Doc with all those different terms. Same thing with symbols. There's a lot of symbol notation, so a good place to look. So what I did, to get here, I hit content, and you know how I said I like to hyperlink everything? You could actually find all that information on your own by clicking on content and scrolling on the left-hand side. All right, so for example, like the applets and videos on how to use them, those would also be here, and I'll reference those when we get to the projects. To access Edpuzzle, this is important, again, because this is a hybrid class. Half of the content will be presented in person, the other half will be presented via video. So you need to sign up for Edpuzzle. It's a separate website. Here's directions on how to do so. And I'll go over how to do this in class Tuesday, but if you want to try it now, you would follow these directions and you'll see that our first set of videos have been assigned. So I'll show you that in class as well. Information on projects. This is where you find the overview and instructions and the template for your project. So that's another source there. And then remember where I had hyperlinked all the assignments? You could actually find that, for example, by going to Lesson 1, Activity 1A. You'll see a few things. First is the digital file of the notebook for 1A. So you'll see that there. You'll see a video resource related to that lesson. And then once we actually have our class, I'll unhide this. This is the pre-recorded video of the lesson. So let's say you're sick and you can't make it to class. You could always watch the video. However, that does not mean you don't need to attend class. You do need to attend class. This is just for those instances where you're not able to make it. Okay. And then once we get to like 1C, you'll see your preview assignments start to pop up. All right, because there's no preview assignment for 1A or 1B. And then at the end of each lesson, you'll see a practice assignment. Just to kind of give you the flow of the course, previews usually occur throughout the lessons, 2B, 2C, right, 2D, and then at the end you see a practice assignment. All right. Now, like I said, I hyperlinked all those assignments in our weekly announcements, so you'll see them there as well. But just another way for you to be able to flow through the course if you wanted to do it this way as well. Cool. So that's the content. A few other places, activities, assignments is a good place to look. This is where you would submit all of your project checkpoints and your project final drafts. So I'll go over those details as we go through the course. And then one other place is quizzes. The honors pledges here, we'll do that on Tuesday night. If you ever want to check on your grades, you would hit on grades, and that will take you to your grade book and tell you what you're missing and what grades you got on previous assignments. So that's our course page in a nutshell. If there's any questions before our first night, definitely let me know. If you're in the MAT 062 class, I'm going to ask you to stay on. I just have a few more pieces of information. If you're not in MAT062, you're good to stop the video, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Thanks. All right, so for those of you in MAT062, you want to go to MAT062-406, the course page. And you'll see in my welcome announcement that I'm not going to give you 2 announcements each week, right? So any announcements made for MAT162 will also apply to MAT062. I don't want you having to look in 2 different spots. So just so you know, anything else would be communicated on MAT162 page. However, if there's something specific, I'll post that here for MAT062. You'll see a lot of this stuff is the same. So my instructor info, my office hours, the weekly timeline schedule, all of that. So just a few things to go over for this course. I'm going to click on content and then go to course information and then the evaluations measures. Okay. So all of the course expectations apply for MAT062 as they would for MAT162. However, there's a few differences. So your grade for MAT062 is 40% for being the projects, 5% being the preview assignments, and 15% being the practice assignments. These are the same assignments from MAT162, so you're not doing double the work. It's the same assignments. However, the support class, there's an additional 40% for the support class that come just from the support class. So what are these support activities? Well, the goal of the support class is to support you in MAT162. It's not to give you a ton of extra work. It's to help you with the assignments that you already have, such as the projects, preview, and practice assignments. So what we'll do is we'll do review activities about every other week in the course during our support class time. That's just kind of reviewing information that we learned in MAT162 and information that will show up in your project assignments. So that's a lot of the work for the class are these support activities. I'm also going to give you time during the support class to work on your projects as well as your preview and practice assignments that you're having trouble with. So it just kind of gives you more one-on-one time to work with me, the instructor, with your work. Okay. So yeah, that's the support class. I'm sure you'll have more questions as we get there. As a reminder for this course, you don't need the support class textbook, so do not purchase that. And that's it. All right, so with that, I'll see you all on Tuesday. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.